Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Many things happening that aren't good, but we're going to make it right at Freedom Watch. This is what we do. We are your Justice Department. You have no other Justice Department that is honest. You have a Gestapo of the Biden Justice Department. But let's talk about what's been going on in the legal profession, because the legal profession has hit rock bottom. As I've said before, it's the most corrupt profession in this country, and for that matter, worldwide. It's no accident that most of the politicians on both sides of the aisle are lawyers. I have with us today Judah Friedman, my colleague and friend, and he's going to be a co-host with me. We'll talk about this. But right off the bat, we have three legal matters that we're going to discuss. Number one is the decision by the Supreme Court to order Texas to take down the wire at Eagle Pass, which is keeping a flood of immigrants, the illegal immigrants, drug traffickers, human traffickers, sex traffickers, fentanyl traffickers, and terrorists out of the state of Texas. And here the Supreme Court orders it to be taken down. And this is really remarkable. And my hat's off to the governor of Texas. He says, I'm not going to obey that order. It's about time that the states exercised their rightful jurisdiction and authority. They are not responsible to have to follow a Supreme Court order which is clearly unconstitutional and which endangers the people of Texas. We're going to be talking about that. This is the beginning of a potential civil war, because you've got Texas National Guard down there, you got Texas Rangers. In fact, I represent a Texas Ranger who was shot by a Mexican policeman across the border, believe it or not, in the private parts. That case is ongoing in Texas, I might add. And then, of course, we have a preliminary decision by the International Court of Justice. I actually studied there as a young lawyer. It has become a complete abortion. They are putting Israel on notice through a preliminary finding that they may be found, Israel, to have committed genocide. This is obviously something which was orchestrated by the government of South Africa. And there's an irony here, because we might remember, and nobody condones apartheid or what was going on at that time. In fact, as a young lawyer, I went to South Africa twice, and I was disgusted by apartheid and what was going on. I was an international trade lawyer. I worked for another law firm at the time before I started mine. But the reality is the government of South Africa, comprised mostly of communists, has destroyed that country. And now they want to destroy Israel as well. Vehemently anti-Semitic, I might add. And that is an absolute outrage. And then let's talk about another matter, and we'll get to the big one, the big kahuna here. Proud Boys. A Proud Boys member was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He appeared in front of Judge James Boasberg of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Boasberg, I've been in front of him before. A complete hack. He's just one of many on that court. In fact, they're all hacks, frankly. And he wanted this defendant to basically get down on his knees and repent for going into the Capitol. Apparently, all he did was to push down a barricade. And the defendant came back and said, Your Honor, I will not make a confession. I will not repent. I don't care if you give me 100 years. And he added, You're nothing but a clown, which is exactly what Boasberg is. This is a judge who wouldn't even release the photograph of Osama bin Laden. When we saw it at Freedom Watch, my former group saw it as well. There was no privacy concern here. And to this day, we don't know whether we actually killed bin Laden in that raid, or whether he died of natural causes, or God knows where he is at this point in time. Maybe he'll run for president of the United States. He certainly was more competent than the one we've got right now. Little facetiousness. And then, of course, there's Judge Lamberth, who I used to have a high regard for, no longer. And he basically went off on a tirade just yesterday with regard to January 6 defendants, and upped a sentence of one of the defendants by 60 days, simply because that individual was challenging his authority. He, of course, has been stung by having given the QAnon shaman so much time, when it was later revealed that the QAnon shaman was actually escorted into the Capitol by Capitol Police. But I know Lamberth quite well. I used to consider him a friend. It's a shame what's happened to him. He's gone south. And this is a guy who told another January 6 defendant, you had no right to be in the Capitol because George Washington said you must obey the established government. Of course, George Washington did not obey the established government, or we wouldn't have a country today. And here's the big one that we're going to talk about with Judah, and that is a verdict came down today against President Trump for $83 million in the case involving the woman who claimed, remembered 40 years after it happened, that she was raped by Donald Trump. It was a defamation case. Trump denied it. He said some statements, about her credibility, and he got nailed for $83 million. The judge, Lewis Kaplan, a member of the Marxian Jewish left, along with the other judge that Trump is confronting, Judge Arthur Engoron, another card-carrying member of the Jewish left, Marxists in their own right, have been terrorizing Trump. And if there's any good lesson to be learned from this, by the way, Lewis Kaplan threatened to throw Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, in jail today before the verdict came down. If there's any lesson, is that the American people are now beginning to see what I've been saying for decades, since I started Judicial Watch on July 29th, 1994, is that our legal system does not represent the American people. It represents itself, particularly at the federal level. These, of course, are two state judges, very corrupted. But without judges and without a system that will protect the American people, we are left defenseless. And that's the reason for being for Freedom Watch, because we are your protector. So I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause with tax-deductible contributions. You have no protection in the legal system. Today, people see through it. They see just how corrupt it is. And if the tragedies that are happening to President Trump have any silver lining, it's because it is exposing what I've been saying now for decades, that our legal system is corrupt to the core. Judah, comment on some of the things that I just mentioned, and then we'll get into the next segment after the break.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a joke. This E. John Carroll woman is a joke. Remember, this was a case that New York allowed a law into effect, call it the Trump law, that everybody had 1 year for past things. This is for past sexual abuse cases. This is a woman that said to Anderson Cooper, "Rape is sexy." This is a woman who tweeted that her favorite show was The Apprentice. This is the woman who tried to sell books, who can't remember the date that this happened on, who wore a dress that she said this was the dress that was in when the designer said that dress did not exist in the year that this alleged incident happened. And he's accused, he defends himself, and somehow that ruins her reputation. And today he's paying $83 million for it, when they were only asking, I believe, for 12. So the jury took it upon themselves to award her or him 60 million more dollars. This is a joke, and people wonder why he's so far ahead in the polls. And I pray that I'll be honest, Larry, I got to say this: for any women that are happy about this, I pray you have sons, because your sons are in jeopardy of false accusations, and there is no line of defense against your children. So for all the women that are happy about this, be careful. Watch with every Trump case. It comes back at you. And this will come back at you, women with sons. So there you are.
Well, this has been true. This has been true for a very long time, that when there's a case with a man and a woman, if there's some allegation of sexual misconduct or whatever, the man is guilty until proven innocent. And it's even worse than that, because the woman can simply lie under oath. The authorities do nothing about it. She walks off scot-free, happy, in this case, $83 million richer, plus the prior judgment of $5 million. So now it's $88 million assessed against Trump. And it's basically a kangaroo court. That's what it is. And, my heart goes out to Alina Habba, who did her best. She is very smart. I saw her, make a speech in front of the court with regard to Judge Engoron and the other case, the other phony case dealing with Trump's making fraudulent statements with regard to valuing his property. She's not a dummy, believe me, but this judge rode her, threatened her, terrorized her, and so has Engoron. And then, of course, the leftist media, people like Seth Meyers, excuse the French, the scum that he is, rips into Alina Habba, and so does the rest of the left. So we are in a war with the left. Make no mistake about it. It's us or them. I say peaceful and legal, keep it peaceful and legal, but they must be destroyed. They must be eradicated. They must be removed from our body politic because they are destroying this country. They've destroyed the legal system. And for that matter, the establishment judges and the federal bench in particular, like Lambert or others, they're a little better, okay, because they just go with the flow. They don't want to stick their neck out. And they don't understand truly what's going on today because they think the way it was, like the movie The Way We Were with Barbara Streisand and Robert Redford. It's not that anymore. Right now, the country is living under extreme tyranny, which if it had been 1776, we'd already be in another revolution. But the American people are frankly so much asleep at the switch, not our supporters, but most of them, that they don't even know what's happening. But at least what's happening to Trump is a example, just one example of what I've lived as 46 years as a lawyer, of the injustice, the corruption, the political indoctrination bias of judges, particularly on the federal bench, but here now you see it in the state court. And it's something that needs to be remedied if we're going to hold off and not have a violent revolution. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. We'll be more of this with Judah Friedman, co-host today. Thank you. I'm back with Judah Friedman. The irony here, actually, it's a strange twist of fate, is that on Tuesday, I'll be taking the deposition of Tiger Woods in a lawsuit that I brought in Palm Beach, Florida, in my own capacity as a golf fan and consumer, about the fight between the PGA Tour and the new tour, Live Golf. It's an antitrust case. It's an unfair competition case. And who are the lawyers that I'm up against that represent Tiger Woods? The same lawyers that represented Jean Carroll in the case that just gave rise to a verdict against Trump for $83 million. And I can tell you something, they're no more virtuous in my case than they are with regard to this woman who remembered miraculously that she was raped 40 years later. And then, of course, it came into defamation. So that's an interesting twist of fate, truly is. And you can go look at the court record and see how I have had issues with these lawyers as well. Fortunately, I prevailed. Took a year to get the courts to sustain this deposition of Tiger Woods. He is believed to be at the epicenter of the anti-competitive conduct against Live Golf. And, Freedom Watch is not just interested in politics. We're interested in economic freedom. We're interested in competition. I'm an ex-antitrust lawyer that helped break up AT&T when I was with the Justice Department. So that's what interested me about this, notwithstanding the fact that I am a golf fan and consumer, and also, my private practice engaged in the golf industry and that kind of thing. So watch what happens with the deposition of Tiger Woods. It's not going to be public initially, but it eventually will be. It's being videoed. That's an interesting twist of fate. I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org. We don't have much time left in this segment, but we truly do need your help. I always have a hard time asking for money. Even when I ran for the U.S. Senate in Florida, that was not my strong suit because, frankly, I'm very individualistic. I like to do my own thing, but we really need it at Freedom Watch. The Republicans have siphoned away a lot of money with their fraudulent advertising, promising to do things. And of course, the latest promise, which they broke, was that they were going to try to balance the budget. Our new speaker, I don't consider myself a Republican anymore, frankly. Only in name only am I registered just so I can criticize them. But Mike Johnson said he was going to hold the line. He wasn't going to be a Kevin McCarthy, but he caved in. He's about ready to be thrown out, excuse the French, on his ASS. And this is what the Republicans do. They lie to the American people, and they pretend that they're representing us. And meanwhile, the Democrats are pure evil. They're just a criminal racketeering enterprise. And that's what we've got. So you really need a Freedom Watch that stands in the stead for you. We have created our own people's justice system, and that system, it indicts, it tries, it convicts. Joe Biden is a good example, convicted not just for negligent homicide in Afghanistan, but also for bribery from communist China, Ukraine, and Russia. And here's an interesting twist, Jude, and I'm going to let you take the stage in the next 14-minute segment. But I actually myself, and this goes back to what's happening with Israel and South Africa and the International Court of Justice, I filed a complaint against Joe Biden at the International Criminal Court, which is part of the International Court of Justice, the United Nations, for negligent homicide in Afghanistan because he ordered a drone strike after 13 GIs were killed at Kabul airport when we pulled out of Afghanistan. And he killed 7 children, one 3 years old. And the International Criminal Court said they were actually going to investigate that. I actually have the letter, and I'll try to put it up on the website again so you can find it. But they've done nothing about that. Instead, they want to decapitate Israel and its leaders. This is what you deal with the UN. The UN as well is corrupt to the core. It's run by a bunch of rabid leftists, and it has no credibility, slightly less credibility than our frankly corrupted US Supreme Court. And we can see what happened with Texas. By the way, the conservative judges that voted against Texas and said take down the barbed wire at the border, that was John Roberts, a man who lives in the closet in many ways, and also Coney Barrett, who is a Trump judge. It tells you a lot about our legal system. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Judah, you're going to be able to give your piece on a lot of different things here. And as our legal system is taking a piece out of us, we'll give our piece on this radio show. Be right back. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause with tax-deductible contributions. Get my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America. And if you have any suggestions on how we can save this country, you can email me at LEE as in Elliot Clayman @gmail.com. We'll be right back. We're back. Judah Friedman, my colleague and friend, co-host. Tell us what you think, Judah, about the current state of affairs in Israel. Israel itself now is, in my view, you may disagree, about ready to shoot itself in the foot. It's proposed a 2-month ceasefire.
No, they took that off the table. None of it's on the table. It's all posturing. They're trying to pray that they could survive another 9 months until Trump comes in, is sort of what they're trying to do. But you also, sorry, you didn't bring up, because it just came out this morning, and I know you've been busy. You're super busy. But talking about the UN, which is part of the Hague, which is part of the World Court, which a lot of people don't realize, is the International Court is just about an arm of the UN that Israel found, and that the United Nations, that at least 12 of the UN teachers, I think it's pronounced UNBAR, I can't pronounce it 100% correctly, were were part of Hamas, and were part of harboring hostages that day and part of the massacre. And yesterday, Blinken came out commending the great job that they do, that the United Nations does in these different places. With less than 24 hours, Larry, we find out that at least 12 of them are Hamas.
What do you mean by teachers? What do you mean by teachers?
Inside of Gaza, inside of many places, Syria, Tehran, the UN has schools, and that are supported by the United Nations. And many of these teachers, especially in Gaza and other associated areas, were part of the massacre that occurred that day, and harboring some of the hostages were at their homes. And so the United States immediately cut funding this morning. That was announced by Kirby, but this comes, I want to say 16 hours after Blinken said they were doing a bang-up job. That's what we're dealing
example, with. And again, I don't want people to think that somehow I'm anti-Semitic because I criticize the Marxian Jewish left, because I'm not. It's actually the reverse, because frankly, as a Jewish Christian, as a Messianic Jew, in effect, I am disgusted by these people. I don't want the American people or anybody around the world to believe that these people are really Jews. They themselves have fomented anti-Semitism against Jews, because people see that these people are out there taking these positions, whether it's Blinken or whether it's Adam Schiff or Gerald Nadler or Jamie Raskin up there on Capitol Hill, or other individuals, these 2 judges that I mentioned. Frankly, it's disgusting, and I am very concerned that the Jewish left, which really aren't Jews at all, most of them, are agnostics or they're atheists, because that doesn't fit in with communism or socialism, that they themselves are creating a backlash against the Jewish people, that And that's one of the reasons for the anti-Semitism that we see growing in this country. Your comments, Judah.
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't listen. This has been going on for so many years. As you brought up with the Trump thing, this is just the culmination of years of judicial malpractice, the breakdown of the Constitution, and when it comes to the other stuff, this is years. Anti-Semitism, Larry, is a disease. And it's a disease that often lays dormant. And every decades or so, it pops its ugly head up really badly. And that's what we're watching right now. There isn't a rise in anti-Semitism. It was just laying dormant. And this idea, and you're right, you're completely right. It does not help that you have people like Blinken, but this isn't just a Blinken thing. This is an EU thing too. This is the European Union, which is so corrupt, which is so anti-Israel, anti-Jew, anti-America,
Not the European Union,
anti-capitalism.
the
Sorry?
UN, the United
No,
Nations.
I'm talking about the European Union. Not the UN, the European Union. I'm talking about Europe. There is no more such thing as Europe anymore, Larry. They have been hijacked by globalists and Islam. Okay, there's no other way of there's no two ways around it. There's the European Union's constant condemnation of Israel is and Britain and all these different places has been going on for so long. When you look at the Labor Party, Larry, when you look at all these things, it's just a dormant disease that right now they found their way out of it with Zionism. And that's just the word of the moment, that you could be anti-Zionist but not anti-Semitic, which is another crock. So yeah, that's my if people want to agree with me, they want to disagree with me, I could care less. I'm sick and tired of watching. I'm sick and tired of when people say, Larry, the world is laughing at us. You remember that trope under Trump? Who could care less if the world is laughing at us? We don't need them as allies. They're not our allies. Europe is not our ally. I'll trust Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates before I do Britain and Italy right now as our
I'll
ally.
get you free tickets to the next Live Golf event. How's that?
That's great. You could plug that too and say, Judah thinks you're better allies, and I do.
Well,
And that was
you're actually right. I mean, actually, I like the Prince of Saudi Arabia.
yeah. So do I.
He did an interview. They've been trashing the Live Golf League, saying, well, the players are taking blood money. They could work with terrorists, murderers, etc. So Brett Baer, who is not exactly friendly towards the Saudis, or for that matter, conservatives, asked the Prince in an interview. He says, "Are you concerned that people are saying that you're sports washing with Live?" And the Prince says, "Hey, if it makes me a few extra bucks, I could care less."
See, that's exactly right. And I wonder, and you're bringing up such a good point, though, because all this started, so much of this started was with Khashoggi, right? I mean, I of the present day, I want to say hate. Okay, remember, Trump's the visionary that saw that Europe is dead and the Middle East would be the new Europe. That was his vision with the Abraham Accords. Khashoggi, who was part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and so right there, I'll give you a good example, Larry. So yesterday, America was reported, we warned Iran that there was going to be a terrorist attack at Soleimani's eulogy, right? So they love using this word proxy, right? Iran isn't at war, it's their proxies, right? So if you went, so we warned Iran, our enemy, that they were going to do a blast at our other enemy's funeral. So by proxy, if you went to a terrorist funeral, you are a terrorist too. Okay? There's no other way. So this is our government right now. This is the United States government.
Well, let me tell you, many years ago, at the beginning of the student movement, I represented Akbar Mohammadi, who was the first student leader to call for regime change. For that, he was imprisoned, sent to Avan prison, which is one of the worst prisons in the world, tortured, killed, body mutilated. I represented the family. And At that time, Voice of America, our Voice of America, was broadcasting garbage during the Obama years that supported the regime. As a matter of fact, the chief of the Persian News Network at Voice of America in Washington, his father was an advisor to the supreme leader in Iran. So you see similar things. You know, these are Obama people. They sympathize with Iran more than they'll sympathize with Saudi Arabia, Israel, or any Arab country that, you know, frankly wants to eliminate Iran. And because Iran is a threat, particularly to Sunni Muslims. They would love to have control of Mecca. They would love to have control of Saudi oil. And yet, and here's the other thing, I mean, the United States under Blinken, Secretary of State Blinken and Biden, you know, gets Saudi Arabia to back off to eliminate the Houthis. So what do we have? We now have a cancerous situation with the Houthis because the Houthis are in Yemen at the base of Saudi Arabia and they were threatening the royal family. I don't believe that the prince ever ordered the death of Khashoggi. Maybe there was somebody, you know, as occurred with 9/11.
But can I ask you a question? Who cares if he did?
This prince is a smart guy, okay? And he's trying to reform the country. He's trying to bring it into the 21st century. But this is what's being used, not just by the PGA Tour to discredit LIV, but it's used just generally. And, you know, that's part and parcel to what goes on today. People don't understand who our friends are and who our enemies are. We have very few friends in the Middle East. We have Israel and Saudi Arabia, and to a lesser extent, Egypt, and that's it. So, you know, that needs to be kept in mind.
Are you talking and the UAE? Let's not forget the United Arab.
As far as Qatar is concerned,
Yeah.
Israel ought to send the Mossad in there and take care of the Hamas leaders that are living there, and they ought to kill the leaders of Qatar too. Get rid of them. Done.
100%. By the way, just so you know, I speak for myself. So my thing on Khashoggi has nothing to do with Larry. But I have no problem saying Khashoggi was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to remind people
And
this.
you don't advocate the elimination of the Saudi royal family and just walk off singing a tune. You know, it's not exactly a smart thing to do. So yeah, right. But I don't think the prince was involved at all. But in any event, let's move on to another subject, and that is where we're going with January 6th right now, because they're fanning out the FBI, our Gestapo and FBI and the Justice Department. And just yesterday, there was a ruling that came down by the Ninth Circuit with regard to the FBI. Without proper warrants, they were breaking into the safety deposit boxes of individuals in Beverly Hills. And the Ninth Circuit, give it credit. The Ninth Circuit does believe in individual rights. People have trashed it for being too liberal and, you know, leftist, et cetera. But frankly, it's a hell of a lot better than the federal appellate court in Washington, D.C. And they said this was exactly why we have the Fourth Amendment. This is what King George III was doing. This is tyrannical. And they slapped down the FBI. Just another example of how our own law enforcement agencies are being used against the American people. The FBI agents were breaking into these boxes. They were doing drug testing. They were going through everything people owned in Beverly Hills. And, you know, why they were concerned with people in Beverly Hills who were by and far fairly far left and probably agree with Biden and the rest of those clowns, it remains to be seen. But they think they can do whatever they want. They can trample on the rights of the American people and bust into their safety deposit boxes, their homes. Happened to my clients, Siaka Massaquoi, other January 6th defendants. We live in a tyrannical state. And as Jefferson said, I've said this many times, when the people fear the government, there's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there's liberty. Comment.
Listen, I agree with you. Listen, I agree with you 100%. And I want to just say something to your fans, because sometimes I save this for the end, but I'll save this for right now. Larry Klayman truly is who he says he is. He's a close friend, and he's an amazing lawyer. And freedomwatchusa.org does absolutely tremendous, tremendous, tremendous work. And I understand times could be hard for people. I understand all of that stuff. But there is nobody that is fighting for your rights than Larry Klayman. And there's nobody that believes in the judicial system like Larry Klayman. It's always an honor to be on with you, Larry, because I have learned so much from you. Listen, I've had two great teachers, many great teachers, but obviously Ben Stein being one, and Larry Klayman being the other, especially when it comes to stuff like this. And I wish he was wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I wish Larry Klayman, I could have said to him many times over, haha, I got you. You were wrong. I was right. I haven't had that opportunity once in the last God knows how many years with a single law case. So please, freedomwatchusa.org, and we could fight back against these people. The only way to fight back is through the law. And I know that that's hard to hear and it's hard to stomach sometimes. As much as we hate the law and what it's become, we need the law to fight what it has become. So there you
Very,
are.
very well said, Judah. Thank you for those very kind words. It's mutual. We'll be right back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Stay tuned. We're back, fellow patriots, those who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers, people of faith, libertarians, anyone who wants to turn this country into a better place. Earlier in this week, I did a podcast, and I did not mean to in any way put down or disparage President Trump, because although I can't tell you who I vote for, and I don't endorse anyone as the head of Freedom Watch, you can probably guess who I vote for. But the reality is, I don't want people to think that because he's now the presumptive Republican nominee and that he may win a general election, that the American people should be complacent, that we should put our feet up on the coffee table, drink martinis, beer, wine, smoke stuff, although I hope you're not smoking marijuana. That's proving to be more and more dangerous in retrospect and doesn't help the body politic, much less your own body. But this is the danger here, is that the American people think that perhaps this political messiah is on the way. And there's no human being, whether it's Donald Trump or anyone else, who is the equivalent of Jesus Christ or Moses, who will lead us to the promised land, or King David or whoever. And that's why it's important to join groups like Freedom Watch, and I hope that you'll join ours, because we're more than a document collection service. My former firm that I founded, Judicial Watch, crows about documents that they get. Well, that's fine, get documents, okay. Hang them on the wall, put them where the sun don't shine. But it's what you do with those documents. It's trying to use the legal system as was just stated by Judah. And occasionally you do break through, and you can break through in a major way. I have many times in my career, but you can't quit. We can't stop. And then, of course, there's our citizens' grand juries and citizens' trials, where we have a right to mete out justice ourselves peacefully and legally. So what Judah just said is very important, because I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't believe in the legal system. The problem is that our legal system right now doesn't exist, and we have to reconstitute it, and we have to keep punching. And then, of course, we have our Third Continental Congress. We need a new government, not a new nation. We need to fine-tune our Constitution. We need to take immunity away from federal judges that they gave to themselves and government officials. We need to hold these people accountable. And although Trump is now downplaying, so-called retribution, I pray there will be retribution if he wins, and I'll be there with him, legally and peacefully, meting out that retribution for what has been done, not just the legal system, but the American people in general. Judah?
Listen, I pray you're right. I have no problem with retribution. I have no problem with vengeance, done peacefully, of course. I love how we always have to say that. But I have zero issues with that. And like I said before, anybody that's happy in life with miscarriage of justice, be careful. It will happen to you. This isn't just about president. You don't break the Constitution because you don't like somebody or you don't like something. You never break the Constitution. And that's what we've witnessed, Larry. We've just the absolute destruction of the Constitution because their people are triggered by a tweet. And be careful what you hope for and be careful what you wish for. Just want to say one last thing. NBC, Larry, lost $2.7 billion last year. $2.7 billion because of the diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you guys keep on wanting to run this woke go broke train. Enjoy your bad selves. Hopefully January 21 next year, Trump will be in power, our time.
Yeah, but don't count on him leading us to the promised land. We have
Yeah.
to do it for
Citizen
ourselves.
soldiers.
That's right. And it won't happen. Moses couldn't do what he did without his followers. Neither could Jesus Christ, who became Christians, etc. And we have to play a role. We cannot look for a Messiah. And look what happened, in France after the revolution when Napoleon was the dictator and tried to restore order when the left went crazy. The French people had to restore it themselves in the end. So God bless you, Judah. God bless America. God bless all of our followers. Stay safe, be vigilant, and be unafraid. We'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, remember, God will only help us if we help ourselves. Thank you for listening to us.